Today's discussion will be presented in 3 sections since we are recording it for broadcast on Federal News Radio 1500 AM. You're welcome to post questions and comments during the sessions, and we'll try to answer them online. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Tom Temin, anchor of Federal Drive on Federal News Radio.
Welcome and thanks for joining us. Our guests today are Brian Brockway, he is the Chief Technology Officer at Commvault, and Dan Kaysen, the Senior Manager of Worldwide Public Sector at Amazon Web Services. And let's start with the beginning here. The Cloud First initiative has been in place for quite a while in the federal government, and yet it seems like that we still need strategies for enabling the federal workforce to get at that Cloud First challenge. What are some ideas there? Dan?
Yeah, the good news is that significant number of agencies are already using the cloud, already in the cloud. The last data I checked, we saw over 2,300 government agencies worldwide that were actively in Amazon Web Services today. The value of that is that we have a really good body of best practices and experiences that we can draw on to help other organizations figure out how they're going to do it. And based on that, the things that I typically recommend organizations look at, the very first one is put together a strategic plan. Think carefully about how you're going to do it, where you're going to drive value, where you're going to get the most learnings early on. And there are some organizations and best practices that help with that. The next thing is security and compliance.
And by the way, who's involved in writing that plan? I mean, who should be at the table there?
Typically, it had been very much a IT-centric type of thing when you thought about premises architectures. It's changed a little bit with cloud because the impact of the cloud goes beyond just IT. It goes to business planning, procurement, and other things too. So just about anybody who has a stake in the cost of running business or running IT will want to be at the table for a discussion like that.
And that includes the program whose matter will be in the cloud.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep. Beyond that, security and compliance, really important, obviously. Looking at cloud vendors that meet the requirements that you need. If you think with AWS and meeting FedRAMP requirements, DoD, SRG, ITAR, CGIS, those things. And that will help too, and make sure you build that into your plan. You're aware of what you need. Training and readiness, it goes back to your question you just had. Train everybody, not just your IT. You do need to train the business people making the decisions about how cloud impacts you, as well as people in procurement. And that's kind of my next lead in that I tell people is think about how you're going to buy cloud. A lot of existing contracts and other things were not necessarily built for that. And as you look at coming out with new ones, how do you craft them in a way that you can procure best? And the last thing I can say from a consideration point is plan for innovation. If you're just planning to move what you have today to the cloud, you're going to get value. There's cost savings, there's agility and other things too. But really the value of the cloud is going to be that it's going to enable you to take new steps to achieve your mission in a different way. And if you look at some of the things that are happening today, whether it's big data or the amount of video that's being recorded worldwide or Internet of Things, this is a huge impact, great opportunity for us to do greater things for our constituents. But the level of data that's going to come in requires that people consider data strategies, information strategy, data governance. Doing that effectively will help you adopt cloud more rapidly and quickly.
And Brian, of course, with all of that data, it has to be protected. And so that's part of the strategies too.
Absolutely. I think Dan brings up a really great point that in much of the cloud adoption we've seen, and from our perspective, we're a data management company. So we help a lot of customers secure and start to organize and protect and retain data, typically maybe inside their data centers. But as Tom pointed out, as Dan pointed out, there's a lot of movement to saying, how do I start to extend myself into the cloud architectures? And one of the pieces is not just picking up and kind of a lift and shift move that I think many have kind of seen as the low-hanging fruit, but it very much is a change in strategy. So it's not just how do I move data from point A to point B, how do I secure it? How do I start to look at it from a different perspective that even in today's regulations and privacy rules, I may need to have to sanitize the data, meaning that I have to make it accessible for certain workloads and certain users. At the same time, if I start to come in and open up the capabilities of the agency to the public, we have to ensure that we're not violating any of our own rules inside there too. So it's absolutely critical to have that strategy in place, not only to the technology, but what do I do about the data, and some refactoring of how do you think about applications and who are the new users and constituents that you're going to tie into the new programs out there too.
And so tied to all of this is the idea of reliable disaster recovery. And the disaster doesn't have to be the cloud provider. It could be something somewhere remote from that, but yet you need to get up and running. So how can cloud be a game changer for disaster recovery?
I'll start with that. The core core benefits that people go to cloud for draw directly into this area. The first thing is cost. When you think about the cost of having cloud-based DR, your infrastructure cost can be significantly lower because cloud is on demand. You use what you need, and you can have a backup environment that is minimized and ramped up only when needed, and that helps people optimize their costs over time. In the same sense, storage in the cloud typically is orders of magnitude less expensive than premises-based storage, and it also has different mechanisms to reduce that cost. So organizations looking at storing lots and lots of data, the cloud can be a great way to do that for cost effectiveness. The next thing is agility. If you look at recovery time, the recovery period, cloud-based recovery can be orders of magnitude faster than what people have been able to achieve in a premise environment too, from days and hours to minutes, seconds to almost none.
Even if they have a backup data center across the state lines?
Depends on their architecture and how they've done it. Those things added together, cost, agility, change how people think or can think about disaster recovery and allow them to innovate in ways they haven't been able to do it. Many organizations or agencies don't have comprehensive data DR strategies because it's going to be cost prohibitive in their mind. Now they can think about it. Now we can have more people that can get into this game that protects all of us a little bit better. Those who maybe do have comprehensive DR strategy can think beyond just operational DR into real information management, information governance, and things that they hadn't been able to do before to incorporate that data into their business in a way rather than just backing it up.
It sounds like something, Brian, they should really bake into the plan at the outset, having a good DR plan. It's hard to believe agencies don't.
Absolutely. I think DR has made a progression in the market that for many years, DR was kind of a de-risk strategy that was phone numbers and do I have a procedure, and there's a lot of lost weekends spent with people going to that remote DR center and seeing if they can kind of recover some items inside the mix.
They might have a lot of weekends for the rest of their career at that
There's a lot of
point.
missed soccer games inside there.
Yep.
But I think to Dan's point, one of the keys that cloud brings to play is not just the elastic nature. So can we bring up a lot of assets in a very short period of time? But there's a new capability inside there too that's programmable. There's a new word in the market these days. It's called orchestration. In the old days of DR, orchestration was a set of procedures that were maybe 3 or 4 inches of a binder. These days, orchestration is, can I pre-program an outcome?
Right.
If I can have the infrastructure work for me in an automatic fashion, and I have it secure and I have my data and all the other pieces together, I can literally start to come in and bring up large sections of my organization in the cloud in a very fast manner.
All right, I want to explore that more, but right now we're going to take a short break. Our guests today are Brian Brockway, the Chief Technology Officer at Commvault, and Dan Kaysen, the Senior Manager of Worldwide Public Sector at Amazon Web Services. I'm Tom Temin, your moderator. This is Government's Blueprint for Disaster Recovery in the Cloud, sponsored by Commvault and Amazon Web Services, here on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM.